Hi there, this is Kelly, and I'm here to take a look at the Heaven and Earth Tarot. I believe it's the artwork is by Jack Sephiroth, and the deck is in collaboration, maybe the Guidebook, I'm not sure, between Jack Sephiroth and Jamie Alford. Now, I know I'm late to this party. I know that there are probably a lot of walkthroughs out there on this already. I wasn't intending on getting this particular deck. However, there is another deck that just came out or is just coming out in some areas called the Runic Tarot that is also with the artwork of Jack Sephiroth and Jamie Alford. And that is a deck that I'm really excited about. I don't feel like we have had a really great sort of Norse deck. And so I'm just curious, given the artwork that I did see, it looked like it was going to be quite powerful. And I had ordered that deck. It is stuck in FedEx limbo in Michigan, which isn't that far from me, but it's stuck there. So I don't know when that's coming or if it's just being gobbled up by the postal system. But after I had ordered it, I had gone into Books A Million and saw this deck, and I hadn't realized, or I just wasn't paying attention, but I hadn't realized when I ordered the Runic Tarot that that was the same combo creators of the Heaven and Earth Tarot. And so I thought it would be interesting to take a look at this and then take a look at the Runic Tarot, because then I have a bit of a comparison between the two. Are they similar at all? Are there carryovers at all? Are they set up the same? Whatever. It just interested me because this artwork is phenomenal. I've seen some of the artwork of this deck and it's absolutely gorgeous. The reason why I didn't pick this particular deck up is that it feels very similar to Darkness of Light Tarot. Not same artist, not copycat art, nothing like that, but just the vibe of it kind of feels like I feel about Darkness of Light Tarot, and that's one of my favorite tarot decks. So I didn't really feel necessarily a need for this, even though I did think it was really beautiful. The other reason I wasn't, running out to get in line for this is that it seems to lean more into the esoteric area of correspondences with things like the Kabbalah and astrology. Very Golden Dawn, right? And from what I understand, this is kind of a mix of Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth, which both are decks that came out of the Golden Dawn. And so that's not, particularly my lean into with tarot correspondences. So, so it just wasn't, it was beautiful, but I thought, not necessarily necessary, right? And I hadn't watched, sat down and really watched a walkthrough of it. So here we go. I thought we'll look at this together. There's all my preambles, why I purchased it, even though it wasn't really on my list to purchase, why I think it looks absolutely gorgeous from what I've seen. But I'm mostly getting it because I was interested to see it was by those same people. And I have followed the Runic Tarot images closely as possible. And the ones I've seen just seem so powerful that, and again, I've not seen a walkthrough of that deck yet either. But they seem really strong artistically that it made, when I saw this was by the same artist, I thought, okay, I guess I better give that one another look. Okay. So let me zoom in a little bit more. This is a Lo Scarabeo deck. It's definitely in more of what I think of as like a Llewellyn deck, which I know Llewellyn distributes for Lo Scarabeo, and you can certainly see the crossover here with the book. I think of Lo Scarabeo decks boxes as being more small, with hardly any of a guidebook whatsoever. So it definitely feels like, yeah, the Llewellyn side of the Llewellyn / Lo Scarabeo combination, but quite a lovely box. And there is a guidebook that is beautiful in terms of its layout. You have color image that is larger, slightly larger than the card itself. Not my favorite of the cards that I've seen. And you do get a good bit of information. I will say, and we'll look over it more closely, I will say that the disappointment off of the bat is that, and it, I guess in some ways doesn't matter as much to me because I don't really use the correspondences that we're going to see are actually on the cards. I mean, I'm aware of them. I've studied some of them, but it's not my lean into with tarot. And so those are there. They're not, in my opinion, super obnoxious. And so it's not as important to me. However, if you are going to put a bunch of symbols on the cards, and we'll look at those in a minute, I do feel like all of those correspondences should be discussed a little bit more in depth than, a lot more, I guess, in depth than are here. So if you're leaning into what I would consider an esoteric deck, I feel like those esoteric symbologies should be covered in the guidebook if you're making a guidebook. And so while this is a beautiful guidebook, and I do think there's some great information here, just, in terms of what is the image, what is some interpretation that's there, what are some, these are certainly correspondences with upright and reverse keywords. It does have the correspondence, but it doesn't tell you anything about it. It does have the Hebrew letter, and it does give you at least a meaning. It doesn't talk about the Kabbalah that I can tell, really, and that seems to be pretty heavy in some of the symbology, so I feel like that should, be here. I guess I wasn't going to go right into the guidebook, but I guess we will. Put on my glasses so I can maybe actually read it. So let's look at this a little bit more properly. So we have, obviously, our lean into, so has a Bible verse here at the beginning, at the end, and it says that the Heaven and Earth Tarot brings forth the glory of the heavens in a way in which we can connect to it on a daily basis. This deck is for people who see the divine in the everyday. The connections between the mundane and the spiritual appear in every card with the deck. The artwork in this deck blends the images of the Waite-Smith deck with the deeper occult wisdom of the Thoth. So it says right in the book that it is a mixing of the two systems. Jack Sephiroth's artwork displays a feel for the classical, which I 100% agree. This artwork reminds us of the pre-Raphaelite movement, which looked to nature for their art. It is absolutely gorgeous, everything that I've seen. It does also talk about how each card highlights the connection between the heavenly correspondence, the Hebrew alphabet, as well as the meaning of the tarot. So we do see in a pretty good synopsis, can we speak English, of what we're looking at. We're seeing really beautiful classical pre-Raphaelite style art. We are seeing an attempt to bring heaven and earth together, which we can see by the title of it. We are definitely going to see Christian correspondences and ideology that came out of the original, obviously, tarot from France and Italy, which makes a lot of sense. That was where it came from. And the deck, it does say, not differently from the 1909 tarot by Waite and Smith, follows sometimes a Christian symbolism. However, the connection between the divine, or as much some may say the higher self in the spiritual world, and the mundane, or the lower self, or the material world, is the same independently of belief. Humanity lives on earth but seeks the heavens, which I agree. It's just a lens to look at things through, and it's very clear in what the deck is doing, whereas my hope is, right, that obviously the Runic Tarot is similar, but it is connecting us to the Norse traditions and the runes. So we have that. We do have a understanding of what we're getting. There is a description of the card's image, which I'm a big fan of in decks. Tell us what's there and why you put it there. Section 2 gives us a different way to read the symbology. What is the symbol? How did you interpret it, I guess is what I would say, which I think is the heavenly meaning. The earthly meaning decodes the symbols. I'm going to say it doesn't do that very well, but that's my opinion. Section 4 includes 3 to 6 questions to ask yourself when working with it in case you like to journal. Section 5 will give you ways to apply transformative power of the card meanings to your life. So we'll look at that in one of the cards in a second. They do give us a chart with the number, the card, the keyword, which I'm assuming is Golden Dawn keyword, the Hebrew letter, and the meaning of the Hebrew letter for the major arcana, and also gives us the astrological correspondences here and the traditional names of the cards themselves. When we get to the page, we have a beautiful rendition, and this is gorgeous. Like, if you want to study a deck later after you've shuffled it, the last thing you want to do is put it all in order or find it. And you can see that this is a well, let's turn it this way. You can see that it is a slightly larger than the actual card itself, which is wonderful to be able to read the text and refer back to the image without having to go find it in your deck, which is something I love. Absolutely love the backs, but we'll come back to the deck in a second. So we have that. So let's just give an example of what we get with the Fool. The image section says, a fool stands on the edge of a cliff. Let's put this up here so we can see it. A fool stands at the edge of the cliff. Their clothing displays a Jewish tree of life, so you can see it right on there. And they do let us know what that is on, in case you've not seen the tree of life, you'll know what that is because it tells you. The robes are dark in color and a mantle of moss has been placed on their shoulders. The inside of their cloak is colored with fire, reminding us that fire can be a creative force as well as a destructive force. You can see that here. A small bag is tied to a branch which hangs over the shoulder. It holds the possessions the fool needs as they set out on this journey. A rose is delicately held between their fingers at their left hand, and a dove flies in the air above. A wolf pup howls at the fool by their feet. So we can see the dove, we can see the wolf. I wish there was a little bit more of why is the branch there, why is the bag there, why is the dove there. I mean, we can see that there's a dove there. We can see that there's a wolf there. I think that if you're going to point out, and these are very traditional symbologies found on Rider-Waite-Smith, especially decks, and plus extras. But if you're going to say that they're there, I think a little bit as to why they're there and what those symbols mean would be useful. And again, this type of deck that seems to be very focused on those symbolisms. The heavenly interpretation says the fool is neither male nor female. They are androgynous, which means they carry the physical and cultural traits of both genders into one being. This allows them to move inside and outside of any and all cultures to watch, learn, and integrate the lessons from all aspects they witness. Their number is 0, which also moves in and out of time and space. There are many cultures that do not place 0 at the beginning of a sequence, so it, like our fool, like our fool's androgynous position, can be moved around in any place in the major arcana sequence. In this way, the fool has access to all the other cards' meanings and archetypes. They can learn to master all of them. The fool is the beginning, middle, and end of a sequence. The energy is new and innocent. The fool keeps an open mind and wanders around the world seeing things for the first time. I do like this very strong lean into the fool as a witness. I think that is really a powerful descriptor of one of the aspects of the fool. Earthly interpretations, keyword innocence, Hebrew letter is Aleph, meaning ox, and we'll look at this in a second here. Hebrew letter Aleph meaning fox, or ox, not fox. Correspondences are air, Aquarius, and Uranus. Upright meanings new journey, beginnings, innocence, freedom, push through the challenge, playful behavior, leap of faith. Reversed meanings reluctance to change, being blocked, desire to stay where you are, feeling restrained, fixed position, unblock yourself. So again, my problem with this is if we're going to have like correspondences on the cards, I feel like, and there's also one that's missing that's not talked about here. I feel like you should have at least given keywords or some like, okay, well, what does that mean? that Aquarius and Uranus are the correspondences. You know, many people will know that if they work with astrology, but I don't think we can assume that, so it would be helpful to have some more information, in my opinion, there. And especially as to do with the Kabbalah aspects, because I don't think these are necessarily what everybody works with or has knowledge of. And yes, you can get other books on it, and you should if that's something that you're going to lean into in your deck or in your tarot reading. But to give us nothing about what that might mean, that this is a correspondence in a deck in which seems to be highlighting those correspondences, I don't think that even lets somebody that's newer to those correspondences know whether or not they want to get another book about what that might mean. That's just again, my opinion. So then there's questions here. What happens when the Fool walks off the cliff? What items does the Fool keep in their bag? What does the color white mean to you? Is the dog helping or hindering the Fool? What is the Fool thinking? Where are they going? Definitely like journal prompts. So then the last one is called transformations. The Fool's energy is generally read neutrally. It means a new start when it appears upright in readings. This new start is contained with the beginner's mind and does not contain any preconceived notions about the journey or surroundings. It's an awareness of being in the present moment with nothing flowing through your mind, just accepting everything as is. This energy can relate to the moment of meditation, where you reach stillness and just sit with yourself in the moment you are meditating. Of course, the moment you realize you reach that stillness, it slips away. And this is how the Fool's energy can slide out of the pure meaning into a negative side. A reverse Fool is unwilling to take that step forward to the cliff. It contains fear of the unknown and a desire to stay where they are. The reversed Fool believes they already know all it is to the situation and do not need to continue any further. So that's what we get for a major arcana. Again, I like that we're getting a descriptor. I feel like it would be more helpful in the descriptor to tell us why they're pointing those things out. What does each of those things necessarily mean? Why is a Jewish tree of life on the Fool, right? Why is a small bag tied to the branch, and what does it hold? Well, it does tell us that it holds the possessions that it needs. A dove is in the air. Why is the dove in the air? A wolf pup yowls. Why is the wolf pup there? Again, do we know some of those things already as knowing tarot? Yes, but somebody who doesn't, if we're going to point them out, I think should be added more. And the same thing for sure with these correspondences. So let's pause for a second though, and let me show you the bottom. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing. Here we go. Here we have the bottom, and we can see that we do have the Hebrew letter, and underneath it is a little like sigil of what it means. So there we have an ox sigil. We have the symbol for air, which tells us this is an air element card in the Golden Dawn traditions. And then we do have the Uranus here and Aquarius here, and then I can't even read that, to be honest, right here, but my understanding is that this is telling us where on the tree of, oh, there they are, there's the numbers. That has to do with arrows of where it is on some Kabbalistic box diagram, whereas this is the number, it stands between the first and the second. I think there's Sephiroths in the Tree of Life. And so where on this Tree of Life would this card stand according to the Golden Dawn traditions? Now, my understanding is that there are, as with all correspondences, there are a variety of ways, and I'm sure that the way that it was classically associated are probably a little different than they are in a modern context. And I tried to look up a little bit Modern Metaphysicians. He has a review of this deck that I have not watched the whole thing on because I wanted to see the cards myself. However, at the end of it, he does talk more about these, and so I will put a link to that below. I do not work with the Kabbalah and tarot. I have loosely looked it over and studied it in the context of tarot, but I don't have any base outside of tarot. I have no base with the Kabbalah, and so that is not something that is a strong interest of me to lean into or learn as a correspondence of tarot. So don't take any of that to I'm just going to peek here at the back just to see if there's some more. Like, there seems to be a strong, no, I did like this introduction to tarot. I did look at this when I first pulled the deck out. I like this little history here. I'm not sure why these things are at the end instead of at the beginning, but you know, again, I do like that there is a as above so below spread. I think that goes with the theme of the deck. I like there to be a spread that goes with the theme of the deck. And then your first reading and a conclusion. I'm not sure why this is stuck at the back and not stuck at the front where it normally is, where somebody would look for it. But that's just a choice. So I guess my point is that we're pretty clear here that there is a connection to the Kabbalah, but there is for sure not enough information here to even tell us why or what that is. And in fact, as far as I can tell, and you can put in the comments if you know something that I don't know, but as far as I can tell, there is actually nothing that says what those arrows are. I only knew what those were because I looked at the video that I linked below. And the same thing with the 1 and the 2. That I did kind of guess because of this and this. And the astrology is something that I do know, but there's nothing here that even shows an image of the card and points to each of these things and tells us what they are. So again, don't want to beat it to death because those things aren't super important to me, but they are likely important to some people who would at least be interested to know what these are. And we've had other decks like this where there have been like interesting symbols, but then they aren't described. I just feel like if you're going to put sigils, notations, symbols onto a deck, then you need to very clearly explain what each one of those are for each card. I think that's just sort of what you should be doing. That is so gorgeous. Again, the deck is stunning, and this would not stop me from using it, but I don't think it makes for a great guidebook for this deck with all of the esoteric layering. So I'm going to peek over here. I'm trying not to give all the images away, although I think everybody's seen this whole deck except for me. So let's look at the minors. So the minors, we don't have images here, but we have the same sections that are here, but we don't, obviously a smaller amount of text, and we don't have a color representation of the image. Let me see, I saw some kind of a chart just then. Oh, so it's going in and giving you the keywords for each of the pentacles, each of the suits. So in front of each of the suit, it gives you what their original title is, but then it gives you your keyword, which is on here. My understanding is, and again, it doesn't tell us that, it does tell us that it is a combination of RWS and Thoth, but from my understanding, I know that they're not the Thoth keywords. And so my understanding is they are more the Golden Dawn keywords, which the Rider-Waite-Smith left off, those keywords on the minors. And of course, Thoth kind of modified and did, Crowley did his own version of those in the Thoth. So it's definitely a blending between the two. But if you're going to do something like that, I feel like, okay, then let's explain it really well in the guidebook. I really shouldn't have to go hunting down and trying to figure out what they're doing, in my opinion. So that's what we have there. So let's pull the cards out. Again, you can see it's in a nice box, and you've got the inserts here, the cardboard inserts, they fix the problem with the cards going into the middle. That's all good. Like these new box by Llewellyn, again, Llewellyn and Lo Scarabeo work together. Llewellyn distributes for Lo Scarabeo in the United States at the least, and they do an amazing job. No complaints there. So here is just the opening card, which is gorgeous. The backing is stunning. Like that's, to me, a perfect backing. I love backings like this that are simple, but also really gorgeous. You can also, unfortunately, see that they're pretty glossy. I've seen worse, but not by far. Like it's pretty glossy. In general, I tend to like Lo Scarabeo cardstock in terms of shuffling. We'll see when we come to the end. But that back is stunning. It's really just perfect. It looks aged, it looks antiqued. If you just kind of fan it, you can see it really goes with the vibe and the feel and the color palette of the deck. So beautiful, beautiful choice on the back. Okay. I thought because this is a blending of the two, and I started to run through these, and I thought it might be interesting to see the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Thoth on either side, just to see if we pick up on anything that does get a little bit blended here. So as we go through the cards. So sure somebody else has already done this, but this interests me just to see what gets picked up from what. Here we have the Fool, and we can see this looks really traditionally Rider-Waite-Smith. We do have the Dove here that we see in the Rider-Waite, or we see in the Thoth, that we don't see actually in the Rider-Waite-Smith. So that's the only thing that I see similar here, is the Dove there. Although we do have flames, it looks like flames in his hand, which we can see on the inside, and it mentions the flame on the inside of the moss cloak. So that is quite, the moss cloak is different from both, but that brings in that flame there as well. We definitely have more of a, I don't know, cat tiger thing going on here than a dog. This is definitely a wolf versus a dog, so a little bit of variation there. Next we have the Magician, very powerful looking Magician. We do have the association here with Mercury and Gemini and Virgo. And we can certainly see Mercury, we can see the symbols on the Thoth, and we do see Mercury here. Certainly more of a Hermes feel, which does go with Mercury, right, a little bit more. But the image-wise, we have a very Rider-Waite-Smith look to the particular, to the image itself. Although I will say he looks much more powerful. I don't feel like he looks like a magician in terms of, he looks like he's dressed up as a magician, whereas he looks much more powerful there. The High Priestess, again, very Rider-Waite-Smith imagery here. We even see we have the moons going on, and the headdresses are in both. We have that shown up here, not as a headdress. Then we have more of a Christian cross than the equal-sided cross here. But it definitely has a much more of the traditional look, a Rider-Waite-Smith look. Stunning. Like, I absolutely love this High Priestess. I think she is gorgeous. I don't see anything, oh no, look. You can see the camel is in the background, and we see the camel here on the card of the Thoth card. So we definitely see that. That's not a traditional image that we would see obviously in the Rider-Waite-Smith. So we do see a little bit of a blending. Also, this book with all of the locks in what looks to appear to be locks of the astrological correspondences is really interesting. That is not found on either one of the Thoth or the Rider-Waite-Smith. Stunning card. That's really one of my favorites. Here we have the the Empress. I think this is a beautiful card. I do think she looks a little too young, although she doesn't look particularly old either. I feel like this one looks a little more regal. We don't see the swans. That's a waterfall in the background, which I do love to see. We do kind of feel water around here. We have a lyre here instead of a shield. There, sorry, my camera's like, what are you doing? Thought maybe there were like swans on the edges there, but we don't. I do like the wheat that we see right here. We certainly see Venus there. I don't see any pull in really with Thoth on this one, but it is beautiful. I just wish she looked a little bit older. I do, and again, I do like the depiction here of the more political king seated in the throne, structured here, and the out in the nature, the wood throne instead of the stone throne, the in the halls versus out in nature, and so you have much more of an ordered political power versus a natural power of the queen. But again, I just wish she was a little bit older, but that's, you know, picking things. Here we have the Emperor, of course, and again we have the looking outward. It looks like using a different Hebrew symbol association. Again, they're not telling us where they're pulling these from necessarily, but it is definitely, this one is not lining up with the Thoth card here, and definitely imagery wise looks a lot closer to the Rider-Waite-Smith, although we do see the shield at the foot of the crown of the throne that we didn't see before. We certainly have Aries, but we see those here, we see those here, we see those here. We don't have the, you know, the cross leg or the looking this way, so this one feels a lot more Rider-Waite-Smith influenced. Here we have the very traditional Hierophant. Again, we have an image of a dove that I don't actually see in either one. We do have the bull and the elephant here, which is something that we see in Thoth that does not show up in the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the Hierophant. But otherwise, we do have the key as well, which is much more a key staff, which is much more in alignment with the Thoth here. That's the same head here. But we have the supplicants here. So yeah, it's definitely, this one is a blending between the two of them. He's quite powerful looking. Here we have the Lovers. I feel like it's, you know, gone with the Garden of Eden, which is makes sense in this deck. We have an angel overhead. I do like the sword that is there, but you know, it's not the Cupid. It's, you know, that's a little bit of a variation, and you know, this to me feels like a bit of a stiff body posture. It's not my favorite of them. Like, I don't feel like if he was holding her, it just feels a little bit stiff in the posturing of the bodies here, and certainly we don't see that in either the Rider-Waite-Smith or the Thoth. We don't have the different colorations here, or looks like different races that we see in the Thoth. We don't, of course, have that in the Rider-Waite-Smith, so it seems to lean more towards the Rider-Waite-Smith, but just with having him holding her rather than them standing apart from each other. I'm just seeing if there's anything popping out of here from here, but I don't really see. This is definitely much more Rider-Waite-Smith based with its own changes. Here we have very traditional, my least favorite types of Chariot cards. It doesn't look like this Chariot can move. They're so heavy looking. It's just not my favorite. We have the two Sphinxes, not the four that we have here. We have a different shape on the front than we do on either of these. The stars and the headdress in there are much more to do with the Rider-Waite-Smith. So this feels, again, more Rider-Waite-Smith based than Thoth. I swapped this so we could see. They have obviously chosen to put strength at 8 instead of 11. Thoth puts justice at justice at 8 and strength at 11. Rider-Waite-Smith flopped that, and they've chosen to stay with the Rider-Waite-Smith version of that. We do have a bit of a difference here in that we have a snake, and I also, this was one I had looked at the guidebook on, and there is a brand on the lion. I don't know if somebody knows what that brand is. I can't see it well enough. Maybe when I'm looking back on this video I can. But it doesn't tell you what it is. It says that there's a brand there, and it notes that there is a snake there, and it's obviously this protective stance going on here. A battle has happened in terms of how it describes the lion, but it doesn't tell you what that brand is, or, you know, what's going on, you know, why they chose to put a snake there. Again, the image is great. It doesn't really matter. Those things don't matter to me. But at the same time, if you're going to say that there is a brand on this lion, and then why wouldn't you then say what that brand was? That makes no sense to me why you wouldn't say that. So are you purposefully trying to be obtuse about it? And have it be sort of like a secret brand, then why mention it at all? So it's just kind of weird why they just didn't say what the brand is. But anyways, there we have that. Definitely favors more the Rider-Waite-Smith. Absolutely stunning. I like the addition of the snake. There does seem to be a reason to battle, so to speak. But I just thought I would point that out. Here we have a beautiful, and I know these are mountain ranges, but I know this is very Rider-Waite-Smith, but it feels like he's standing like on a rock in the middle of the ocean, just really out there, away from society. I think it's gorgeous. It's definitely more identical, I should say, to Rider-Waite-Smith. But I will never get tired of hermits like this. I think they are stunning and classic and really do make me quite happy. Here we have a, again, I'm never a huge fan of Rider-Waite-Smith kind of cloned or inspired Wheel of Fortune cards. They just don't usually do it for me. It's not the card that I usually look to be surprised. So when I get it, it's more unlikely that I'm going to get a Wheel of Fortune that wows me than not. But we have the snake, we have the Anubis, we have the Sphinx up here. We certainly have the 4 quarters like we do in the Rider-Waite-Smith. You know, these are quite similar minus the 4 quarters. So, you know, is it drawing, it looks identical to the Rider-Waite-Smith. Okay, so now we have the Justice, which again, the Waite-Smith and the Heaven and Earth Tarot have at 11. The Thoth having it at 8. And from what I understand, the Golden Dawn in general would have had it at 8, but that's just my understanding of that. I don't read in these traditions. But here we do have the beautiful Justice. We have the sword raised. We have the scales. In this case, we have a crown overhead. We have the Libra symbol behind. I love the cranberry coloration here of her dress. Here we do have, we have different, here we have Libra and we have Venus. We do have Libra here, and we have air that's here. But I don't really see anything that's pulled in from this into this. It seems fairly just a beautiful representation of the Rider-Waite-Smith version. I love that this Hanged Man is it's an actual shape of a tree. It makes me very curious to see what you know, because that has more of an Odin vibe to it. So I'm really excited to see the Hanged Man from the Runic Tarot. We do have the Ankh here from the Thoth, which we don't have here. We have an addition of a snake, which looks kind of like that as a snake here, but I don't know if that's supposed to be a snake off the top of my head. We do have the water symbolism here, and this is definitely associated with water. We do also have an air symbol over or under his head, which kind of makes sense with a change of perceptions there, I suppose. So here you're getting a bit of a mix of both. You can see the rod overhead does kind of look like this, but then we have the Ankh from here, and then the tree is kind of their own. I mean, this is obviously a tree branch, but that's a really cool looking Hanged Man. Here we have Death, which looks very Rider-Waite-Smith. I do think the Thoth Death is really fantastic, but this is very clearly, I don't see anything. I really don't, unless somebody else sees something. I don't really see anything Rider-Waite-Smith here. This is very, or anything Thoth here. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith based, but gorgeously done. Here we have Temperance. We don't have it listed obviously as art. We have it kept as Temperance here. Looks quite interesting. We have an arrow here. We do have the triangle and the square on the chest here. Almost looks like one of the cups is drawing from that space as well, but that could just be the way it's overlapping. But we have the two cups that are pouring versus pouring it water and fire in that way. We do have the yellow, one of those, so not tulips. I'm totally blanking here, but we have that here. We have the sun coming up. So again, feels quite Rider-Waite-Smith. We don't have any, I don't really see any carryover from the Thoth here. Here we have the Devil. He is really cool looking. It's a very dark card. All of these cards are muted in tone, but this is definitely dark, but it makes the fire stand out. We do have the Pentacle that we have here. This definitely is leaning to being more of a replica of the Rider-Waite-Smith, but he is definitely pretty cool looking devil there. Here we have the Tower. Again, I would say entirely Rider-Waite-Smith here. Really gorgeous. Love the water here. Love the really massive strike of lightning. The yods falling down. Look like fire, you know, dripping from the fire. We have the falling figures. No, I don't really see, again, anything necessarily Thoth here is standing out. This is one of my least favorites of the cards. It just doesn't look finished when you compare like the faces of like the Magician, all of them really. If you look at all of the faces, they're really like detailed done, and then her face just really, she just doesn't look like she's quite finished. It's definitely not my, it's my least favorite. It's not horrible or anything like that, but it's my least favorite. She seems to be pouring from being a little bit fancy here and pouring the vase behind her and in front of her, but over the top of her head. But we do get that sense of before and behind, which we have here as well. This is I really love the star card in the Thoth Tarot. Definitely more Rider-Waite-Smith. We have a funky little bird up here that seems to be down here more so. And maybe some indications of these types of things here, but I would say mostly Rider-Waite-Smith. Here we have the Moon card. Really beautiful. I don't generally like faces in moons, but that's really beautiful. Much more ordered yods here. We have the dog, we have the wolf. We do have more of the scarab-like creature, insect here than the crab. In the guidebook, it doesn't say anything about that. It just says that it's a, you know, I can't remember the wording, but something about it being, doesn't say scarab, but it says, you know, something about it being this winged crab-like insect, but it, you know, but it doesn't say that that's from the Thoth or why, what that means or why they chose to use it, but we can certainly see that here in comparison to the Thoth. Of course, we still have the dogs there, and the dogs are in both of them, and the winding trail ahead. Here we have the Sun, my least favorite card probably in the Rider-Waite-Smith. A bit much with all of, again, the astrological symbols. I don't really think those necessarily needed to be there, but those are actually in the Thoth, so that makes more sense. When I first saw this, I'm like, why did they do that? But that's actually in the Thoth. I like how the it's done in the Thoth better, but it has all the astrological signs around it like the Thoth. But we obviously have the single baby on the horse with the flag or the banner and the sunflowers, and versus the twinned two fairies or youthful children that are here. I much prefer the Thoth. You know, if you've watched this channel long enough, I am not a fan of babies on sun cards. There is a tradition for it outside of the Rider-Waite-Smith, so it's not, you know, it's no judgment there. It's just not my favorite. It's not my favorite. Here we have the Judgment card, or the Aeon from Thoth, and this is definitely the Rider-Waite-Smith version. We don't have so much the gray. All the tones are muted, but they don't look quite so gray as we have here. But this is definitely, even just in where all of the people are standing, a direct correlation to the Rider-Waite-Smith, just brought to beautiful painting. I don't really see anything added in from the Thoth for that one, or I think the next one. Here we have the World card. We have the angel, the eagle, the lion, and the bull. So we have that. Although I don't know if those are reversed actually here up there, but we have the laurel wreath, we have the lemon scott at the top and the lemon scott at the bottom, the wands in the hand, the drapery, really very strong Rider-Waite-Smith there, tradition, beautiful. And then that brings us to the cups. So here we have the Ace of Cups. I'm gonna go a little bit quicker unless something stands out here. We have the Two of Cups. Again, Thoth is beautiful pips, so I probably don't need to keep going with this, but I'm going to, just in case something jumps out. And I do want to point out the court cards, because most of these minors are going to be Rider-Waite-Smith because of the scenic nature of the Rider-Waite-Smith. This is really beautiful. This is absolutely gorgeous. Now, oh, I should say, let me go back here for a minute. There are keywords on the, as I think I mentioned, there are keywords on the minors. So we don't see the Two of Cups. We see that it's a 2. We have 2 cups, so it's not hard to see that it's the Two of Cups. But, which, you know, we don't have the titles on the Rider-Waite-Smith either saying Two of Cups, right? So we have the Two of Cups, Two of Cups, Two of Cups that are here. But whereas there are titles on the Thoth, there are also titles on this, but they are not all the Thoth associations. My understanding is that they are the Golden Dawn associations. Both Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth came out of the Golden Dawn, but Thoth perhaps made some changes to that. So that was one of the reasons I did want to compare these as well. But visually, it is the Rider-Waite-Smith, but we do have the keyword love from the and I don't know, maybe these are all the Thoth. I guess we're going to find out together. I do think this is gorgeous. Whatever's going on up here is really gorgeous. There it goes. Really beautiful. It's a beautiful Three of Cups. We have, again, very much Rider-Waite-Smith, but this gorgeous almost portal being created by this energy that I think is beautiful. And we have abundance, which is the key word on the Thoth. So here, instead of luxury with the Four of Cups, we have blended pleasures. I'm glad that it's not boredom. A lot of people see this as the boredom card, which I don't. I prefer the blended pleasure here, or even luxury. But I prefer the blended pleasure, actually. But visually, obviously, these are pips. Here we have the Rider-Waite-Smith. They have added in the Pentacle from the Thoth, and we have loss of pleasure, whereas it was disappointment. I like the smearing, like the oil painting smear. You get this in the Darkness of Light Tarot, something that I do love about that art style, which is we do see in these minors. We didn't see that in the majors. Here we have pleasure and pleasure, but interesting because we do have a mother and a daughter here instead of two children, but we do have a child here. It's a beautiful card. Here we have Illusionary Success, which I prefer to debauch, right? We're looking for our, to find our successes, but we're not going to find them in illusion, so we have to be careful of that. So definitely more in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition. Indolence, again, that way I see it. Aids for me are mastery. So I don't actually see it as abandoned success. I see it as, I guess it's the same thing. Abandon has a negative connotation. For me, the movement of the Eight of Cups is not negative. It's not moving away from something negative. You've succeeded and now it's time to move on, versus the Six of Swords where you're moving away from the Five, which is much more, you're moving away from an embattled state to a more calmer, harmonious state. But it's a beautiful image there. So again, much more Rider-Waite-Smith. Here we have the Nine of Cups. Never been my favorite. Prefer him. Still not my favorite, but I prefer that. We have the setup of the pips. Actually, I should have looked more closely at the other ones, but we have this more of the setup of the pips in here. Instead of having it in a row, we have them set up like the Thoth. We have material happiness, and we have happiness here. So that one does feel like a merge between the two. Definitely more of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Really beautiful, though. Perfected success. So a different keyword, definitely more Rider-Waite-Smith. So then we get to the quartz, and this is where it's interesting. Let me try to make room to try to explain this. We'll use the cups here. Just trying to get piles out of the way. So the Rider-Waite-Smith, let's zoom out. The Rider-Waite-Smith, I'm going to have to zoom out more. Let's just zoom out here. The Rider-Waite-Smith has pages, knights, queens, and kings, right? That's kind of the hierarchy of the court. Okay, I'm going to slide this down here. We're going to have to move those, though. The Thoth has princesses, which I love, princes, queens, and the knights are the highest of the hierarchy of the courts, right? So that is power-wise in alignment with the energy of the of the king. Now, what this deck does is it takes the princess from the Thoth, which I love. It has the Knight of Cups from the Rider-Waite-Smith, Queens of the Queens, and then it has the King of Cups. Now, you could, if you were a Thoth reader, you could swap these, right? Because he is on a chariot. All of the princes are on chariots, and I believe all of the kings are on chariots. So if you were to read this in more of the Thoth format, your hierarchy would go this way. And what's interesting is that the elemental association, so all of the courts have elemental rulership to them. All of the pages or princesses are earth. All of the knights are air. I'll come back to that in a second. All of the queens are water, and all of the kings are fire. Now, some people swap those two. So, but in terms of Thoth, the water of fire, right, would be an equivalent to the king. So they have the elemental correspondences equivaling, making the knight an equivalent to the king. So if you base the elemental correspondences, you get the Thoth structure. But if you go off of the titles, you get the end. If you look at, also if you go off of the visual cues, you get the Thoth with the chariots and the horses in the king position or the highest power position. So it's definitely in the courts a blending between of all of the courts, and blending between the Rider-Waite-Smith and the Thoth. I do wish if they changed princess, which I like, I wish they would have put prince, but I think the reason they didn't do that is so that you can have it both ways, so to speak. They were trying to do a bit of a mashup between the two, and that was the best way to create that mashup. So that is what's going on with the courts. Okay, so back to the front here. Again, I really like the use of princess here. And I do like all of this water being thrown up around it that gives sort of a visual cue from this princess. But we obviously, you know, holding the cup, like there's a little bit of a blending here, and we have this more of the female, obviously, that we have of the Thoth. So it's definitely a mixture of the two, but leaning more towards Thoth because we have an actual princess instead of a page. Here we have the Knight, really gorgeous. These court cards are beautiful. Like, that is a stunning Knight of Cups. Obviously the kings are in the Chariot here, versus so we just talked about that. So this is going to go much more with the king, so I'm going to kind of set that aside for a minute, and we'll look at that in a second. But absolutely beautiful. Here we have the queens. Definitely there's a much more abstract quality to the quartz. I love the quartz in the Thoth, but she is also quite beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful queen. My argument, or my, would be that the Empress and the queens, do look very, very young. I don't know what keeps dinging because it's not my phone. So yeah, I do wish that the queens looked a little bit older. They don't look particularly old in the Rider-Waite-Smith either, so that is that's not too surprising, but she's beautiful. And then we have the kings, and of course he is in a chariot you can see the eagle here of the Thoth. And I do like the eagle overhead as well. We do have him in water, and it does feel very throne-like. So there is most definitely a nod to the prince and the king, and a nod to the knight, and the, you know what I'm talking about, the knight and the prince. We'll do it better. Try to do it again better. We talked about it though. Okay. I do quite like this guy we were talking about. Let's get out of the cups. All right, I feel like I've made my point here. Convoluted though it may be. Here we go to the Pentacles. Again, very, very Rider-Waite-Smith Pentacle there, Ace of Pentacles. Here we have change, and this one we have harmonious change, which I quite like. I don't particularly love the yin and yang when I first saw this, but I can see by doing it this way that that is actually something that is in the Thoth. So we have that pulled over. A beautiful woman instead of this guy. I quite love the boats are quite dramatic in this one. But we have the keyword harmonious change in the Two of Pentacles. Here we have material work and works here. We have it looking very visually like the Rider-Waite-Smith. Quite beautiful Three of Pentacles though. The light, the use of light in this deck is quite gorgeous. I like that this doesn't have the greedy factor that we often hear about with the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's not how I read the fours. Earthly power is much more in alignment. It feels very solid here, and we have power as the key word. Five of Pentacles is one of my favorite of the Rider-Waite-Smith images. I always look to see how that's going to be depicted in decks that I know are pulling from strongly from the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. This is absolutely beautiful. We have material trouble instead of worry that we have in the Thoth titles. Here we have the material success. We can see that the pentacles are arranged like the Rider-Waite-Smith. I see the Six of Pentacles as more of an exchange of a balancing and an exchanging of energy. But this is, you know, that traditional, there is a material success and now you need to give back. Feeling that is, you know, in the Rider-Waite-Smith Six of Pentacles. I don't really see anything pulling from the Thoth other than we have success. Again, most of the Thoths are pips, or all of the Thoths are pips. Beautiful pips and expressive pips, but pips. Here we have the Seven of Pentacles. Again, looks quite Rider-Waite-Smith here. Has the shape of the pentacles as kind of a not either one, but is more reminiscent of this. But it's interesting because it isn't the configuration here, but it's also not this configuration. We have success unfulfilled. Here we have failure. I don't particularly love all the Thoth titles. I don't see this as a failure, but it's unfulfilled. You need to allow it to come bring into fruition. So I like that better than the Thoth ones for me. Here we have prudence, which is the Thoth keyword. Visually, we have a very Rider-Waite-Smith, though this is absolutely gorgeous. Really beautiful. Here for the 9, we have material gain, and then we have gain here, so we get that. That's just letting us know it's material gain because obviously it's in the Suit of Pentacles. Visually, it's very much the Rider-Waite-Smith. Beautiful. I do really love to see Nines of Pentacles, and that is gorgeous. Here we have wealth, and let's see, shape-wise, it is very much reminiscent of, they're both actually similar shape. This is just widened out of where the pentacles are at, but it definitely has imagery like the Rider-Waite-Smith, of course, because there are scenes there. But both of them are titled wealth. Again, we come to the Princesses of Pentacles are obviously going to lean more here. I love the Princess of Pentacle and Thoth. I love the quartz in Thoth here. So here again, Princess, really gorgeous. I love the Taurus head over, you know, the bull head over the top in the shadows there, instead of the horns on her, but I like that nod to the Thoth. And yeah, it's gorgeous. That's definitely a blending. Here we have the Prince, or sorry, the Knight which would be, I should just have ordered these, but this would be similar into the Knight, as we were saying. Again, I love the stag head over the top, which is really gorgeous. Kind of see that on the helmet of the Knight. So you see how this imagery does tie into the Knight, which is the highest level in the Thoth. But then you can also see the Pentacles there. Let's go like this, I guess. I'm trying to compare but show them that way. Here we have the Queen. I love this. This is one of my favorite Queen of Pentacles in many decks. I love this. You can see the ram is next to her. You can see the staff, which we don't have here. We can see up above the horns instead of on her head, obviously. So this is definitely a blending of the two. And then the kings are all in chariots. You can see the king is in a chariot being pulled by a bull. We see the same staff that's here, although we have the pentacle in hand like the Rider-Waite-Smith. So again, the courts are a blending, and you could read this as the prince and read the other as the highest of the hierarchy if you wanted to. I'm not going to belabor the point, right? We get the point. Beautiful. I love that, that Ace of Wands. Here we have the Two of Wands with Dominion, which is the Thoth keyword. Very much the imagery of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Here again, same thing. We have, now this one is established strength versus virtue. I like that keyword. Or I like those keywords. Really beautiful boats in the distance. I mean, the artwork is just gorgeous. Here, of course, we have the perfected work is what it says here. Interesting. Not as celebratory and seems really close up to the castle. I kind of see it as getting to the castle, but, you know, it's like this castle is still down the road. So this one to me kind of is, but this has it as completion, right? And the perfected work and right up on the castle leans it more to the Thoth meaning than I would say to the Rider-Waite-Smith meaning, although you can certainly work with it, right? So that's interesting one. Here we have the 5, which is interesting because it is not in a shape here. It's kind of doing its own thing. We have the fire that's going on. We have, you know, the burning and the fire and the astrological symbols. We do have the sort of imagery of the top of the wand here at the top. We have the same keyword, so it leans more to Thoth, but I'm surprised that they didn't just use that shape then there, but pretty cool looking. 5 of Pentacles. Oops, oh, you know what, did I mess this something up? No, okay, that's the 5. Nope, all right, I'm sorry. Here we have the 6s. Of course, we have a very similar to the, we have Victory, which is the title of the Thoth, but we have the image, although I really love this image. That's gorgeous. I don't see, other than the title, I don't see any kind of pullover here. Again, it's a pip. Very powerful. I know that I've seen the 7 of Wands in the Norse, it's not the Norse, the Runic Tarot, it looks quite powerful. And so does this. We have Valor, which is the name of the Thoth. Here we have the Swiftness, which is the title of the Thoth, but we have the image, obviously, of the Rider-Waite-Smith. You know how I feel about the 8, the swiftness. It's mastery, so it, you know, I make it work, but it's not my favorite. Here we have Great Strength versus the Strength of the 9 of Wands. Again, very Game of Thronesy. A lot of this deck reminds me of Game of Thrones feeling to the looks, which is not a bad thing. Here we have oppression. Again, I wish this had been changed. I don't really see the 10 of Wands as oppression. It is a weight, but I don't see it as oppression. But, you know, you can't have everything. Most of the keywords I've preferred over some that I think could have been there. But definitely the shape more of the 10 of Swords. It's just on the back instead. Here we have our princesses. She's very powerful. I feel like she is a very, she looks more to me like a queen, but hey, princess. We have flames. We have the cat face overhead, or the tiger face overhead. So obviously this is going to be much more in alignment with the Thoth as we have seen. We have, let's pull the Knight here. We have all of the flames, much more in alignment with the Knight of Wands, which again is equivalent of the King, and I guess in Rider-Waite-Smith, but imagery wise very Thoth based, although we do have fire, some degree of fire here, but to me it speaks much more strongly of the Thoth image. Gorgeous. Here we have the Queen, powerful. Here, oops, I wanted to save that, so we'll come back to that. Here we have the Queen. We have, instead of the leopard, we do have instead of a black cat, we have more of like a panther, which I do love. So kind of a mix, I guess, of the two. The staff is definitely more in alignment with that. We have the radiating sun behind, even though that's radiating outward. So kind of a mix of the two there with the queens. Again, I wish the queens looked a little older, but they don't really look that old in Rider-Waite-Smith either. And then here we have let's see, we already looked at that. The King being much more, we've got the lion pulling at the flames everywhere, the sun behind the head. So a very strong King of Wands, very powerful. The Wands quartz are very strong, but definitely you can see association to the Prince of Wands, which would again be the equivalent to the Knight. But I do love that King of Wands. That brings us to my suit, the Ace of Swords, beautiful. Two of Swords. This is one of my favorite tarot cards ever. Is the Rider-Waite, or the Thoth Two of Swords. I think is stunning, and I also love not particularly that rendition of it, but I like the composition of the Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Swords. This is stunning, absolutely stunning. Stunning moon. Like, it's just gorgeous. We obviously have the keyword of peace from the Thoth. Here we have sorrow, which is again the keyword from the Thoth. We have the image that is from the Rider-Waite-Smith, but we've added in a person in here as well. I obviously don't read the Three of Swords as sorrow, but growth of the mind through experiences, positive or negative. Threes are the number of growth. Swords are the number of the mind. Do you grow from sorrow? Yes, but you also grow from other experiences. But more, you know, obviously the image is from more from the Rider-Waite-Smith, but we have the title from the Thoth. Here we have the Four. Truce, what does it say? Rest from strife. That thin font is hard for me to read. Rest from strife. Truce is a rest and a break from the strife. Imagery, very Rider-Waite-Smith, very gorgeous. Absolutely love it. Here we have the Five, again, quite Game of Thronesy, quite Rider-Waite-Smith, and the composition is identical, really. We have defeat, and we have defeat at what cost. I love that pip. I love the swords pips in the Thoth. Here we have the, again, quite Rider-Waite-Smith, although we have all these birds here, which I think is gorgeous. And we have earned success versus science. So definitely not going Thoth on the title. We have unstable effort. I don't mind that keyword. There's more going on beneath the surface. That actually works quite well for me. I don't really see the Seven of Swords as futility, so that works better for me. The keywords actually, for the most part, other than the Ten of Wands, have been pretty easy for me personally to work with. Here we have the shortened force. That's interesting. Very Red Witch kind of vibe there, isn't it? Again, feels very Game of Thrones, in a good way. I'm not saying that negatively. But we don't have interference, so we have a different title on that as well. Shortened force, not my favorite. I feel like you could go, you know, her force is weakened because she is bound and she needs to use her mind. I would kind of go at it that way. Here we have the despair and cruelty. It's normally as cruelty. I can see them putting in the despair, kind of pulls in the meaning from the Rider-Waite-Smith. So we kind of have a blending of the keywords of Rider-Waite-Smith. You know, not how I see again. I mean, I do think that the Nine of Swords can bring despair, but it can also bring high degree of mental energy in a positive way as well. Here we have ruin, Rider-Waite-Smith, Rider-Waite-Smith. So mashup of the two. It's so shadowy. It's just kind of, to me, just looks like 10 swords, which works fine. Beautiful Princess of Swords. Like, I mean, that is just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Again, let me swap our knights and our princes here, so you can you know, you don't see any of these kind of wings here, or any of the birds. This one definitely feels more like the Knight of Swords here, but we certainly have movement on a horse, and he is really awesome looking. And our Queen of Swords is quite beautiful, less crabby looking than this Queen of Swords, which is nice. I like her, except for that is a very strange arm shape there. We do have the head being held by her, which is very Thoth, right? And the cherub face up in here is up in the clouds. Obviously, the positioning of the throne is very Rider-Waite-Smith, so a merging of the two. And then the king is in his chariot, being pulled by like a cherubs of some sort, and we see the cherubs over the top of the head as well. So more like the prince, which would be equivalent to the knight, as we already talked about there, but still very powerful. So they've done a good mashup, I think, in the court cards, although probably a little bit confusing to some. So there we have it. I hope that you enjoyed that. Again, I know people have seen this deck to there and back again. I am very late to the game here. But I wanted to take a look at it before I took a look at the Runic Tarot. And when I started to do this walkthrough, I thought, you know, we might as well, if it's a mashup, let's take a look at it. I'm glad we did that. I would have definitely missed some of the things because it doesn't talk about it in the book. It says what it did, but then it doesn't go out and point those things out, which I think is too bad. So, you know, I think there are some helpful descriptions in the book. I'm not saying it's a wretched book, but I think it really missed the mark. If it wanted to be this esoteric mashup, I think it really needed to go further in describing those symbols and what they mean and why they're there. So I feel like they just, you know, didn't go far enough that way. Cardstock feels great. I am a fan of Los Scarabeo cardstock. I don't mind it. It riffle shuffles really good, as you can see. So yeah, I don't mind it. I wish it was less glossy because it definitely has quite a bit of glare to it. So I wish that was less there, but other than that, I got to find that perfect color of kind of a gray a gray toned brown, I think is what that's kind of looking for. I'll have to take this in because I do really love the backgrounds on this deck, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's what I figured. Nearly all of the cards are beautiful. I actually enjoy the titles on the minors more than I thought I would. They mostly work a little bit more with the way that I see the cards than what like a straight Rider-Waite-Smith titles, if you put titles on a Rider-Waite-Smith, would be. So I appreciate that. You know, with some exceptions, which I expect with a Golden Dawn style deck. You know, I don't read it the same way, and so I know I'm going to have to work with the Three of Swords. I know I'm going to have to work with the Ten of Swords. I didn't have to have any issue with the fours, really, which was nice, which I normally have a struggle with the Four of Cups and the Four of Pentacles. The keyword on the Ten of Wands definitely stands out as well. But overall, I don't actually mind the keywords there. And look how beautiful that is. It's really gorgeous. It works with, it's a darker tone deck. You can just see from the toning, it's a very shadowed, but then the light pierces out. Like, it definitely makes use of light, like the Bohemian Gothic Tarot and like the Darkness of Light Tarot. It utilizes shadows and lights. John Bauer Tarot also utilizes, but this is much more in alignment with like the Darkness of Light or the Bohemian Gothic in the use of shadows and light, which is really gorgeous. But it does make it a darker tone, like the whole dark tone of the deck feels dark, which allows then the light to really pop forward in the images. But it's gorgeous. Like, I have to say, it is quite beautiful. I wish that the Runic Tarot, I have high hopes for the Runic Tarot, if it would come out of FedEx limbo. Okay, thank you for taking a walk with us through me. I hope that this was interesting in some way, and I will, as soon as the Runic Tarot comes in, I will be doing a walkthrough of that. I'm crossing my fingers. It should have been here last Friday, then it should have been here yesterday, and now it's like not even saying. It's like we've given up trying to tell you when it's going to be here. We have no clue. It's just not moving. But anyways, once that's in, and then I'll link the two of these together and do a little bit of a comparing at the end of that video. So have a wonderful rest of your day.